All right, so this is Pillars of Fat Loss Part 3. We're going to be talking about sleep. So my name is Christine. I'm the manager at the One Beacon Fitness Center, and I also own CMG Health and Fitness, which is an online training company. I'm a certified exercise physiologist and certified nutrition coach. So Part 3, sleep. So the 5 pillars of fat loss, we've already talked about exercise and nutrition. And if you missed those two presentations, both are on both my YouTube page and my Facebook page. So you can always go back and listen to those recordings from those presentations. So when it comes to fat loss success, there are 5 main pillars that you should always work on: exercise, nutrition, sleep, stress, and lifestyle. When these pillars are equal, you'll find that you are more successful. And when they're not equal, you might be a little bit slower in reaching your goals. A lot of people tend to focus just on exercise and nutrition, but you really should focus on all 5 and focus on making sure that they stay equal. So today we're going to talk about sleep. So the first thing I'm going to talk about are sleep recommendations. So I don't think there are any children listening to this, so I just started with the teenagers. So 14 to 17 years of age, recommendation for them is 8 to 10 hours. For young adults, so that would be ages 18 to 25, the recommendation is 7 to 9 hours. That's the same for adults ages 26 to 64, also 7 to 9 hours. And older adults, so over the age of 65, the recommendation is 7 to 8 hours. Hello to those who just popped in. So, effects of sleep deprivation. There are 5 main things that I'm going to talk about today. Hormone levels related to hunger get thrown out of whack. Your workouts feel harder. You get sick more often. You have increased brain fog and heightened feelings of stress and anxiety. So we talked a little bit last week about those hunger hormones. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail today with those. So there are 3 main hormones that really get affected by sleep deprivation: ghrelin, leptin, and endocannabinoids. So let's start with ghrelin. So ghrelin is known as the hunger hormone. It stimulates appetite, which causes an increase in food intake, so it makes you eat more food. It also promotes fat storage. So when you are sleep deprived, your ghrelin levels increase, which makes you feel hungrier, it increases your appetite, and it gives you a feeling that you need to eat more. The next one is leptin, which is a cell signaling hormone that is crucial in the regulation of appetite and inhibiting hunger. So this hormone tells you when you are full and when you should stop eating. When you're sleep deprived, leptin levels decrease. So that means it'll take longer for you to feel full, thus resulting in you are eating more to feel like you're full. It'll take longer for that full feeling to kick in. The next one, endocannabinoids, I'm gonna call these ones ECBs. There's 2 different kinds, which I'm not gonna get super sciencey on you guys. I'm not gonna get into the specific kinds of ECBs, but there are 2 kinds that we produce. And they're active in the brain reward system. So they increase your hedonic drive, which is the drive to get and feel enjoyment. When you're sleep deprived, your ECBs increase, which causes us to seek out and eat more pleasurable foods. And unfortunately, those pleasurable foods are likely, sugary, sweets, maybe salty foods that You know, they're not bad foods. I will never say if a food is bad, but they're not foods that you want to be eating in excess. So eating those more pleasurable foods, that can result in weight gain. So you have this constant cycle of lack of sleep, followed by feeling hungry all the time because you have increased ghrelin, taking a longer time to feel full because you have decreased leptin, and then always craving sugary foods because of those increased ECBs. And that all can lead to weight gain, and then it all just kind of continues in the circle. We're going to move on to workouts. So how our workouts are affected. Our bodies, the time that we sleep is crucial for our bodies to repair and rebuild the muscles that we broke down during our workouts. They refresh neurotransmitters, remove energy-draining metabolites. So without having enough sleep to do all that work in our muscles and our bodies, we experience decreased central nervous system activity, slower reaction times, lower energy, lower endurance capability, depressed mood, and just a reduced desire to exercise. So, you know, if your body is feeling tired and it didn't repair well overnight, you're not going to want to exercise again. You're going to have low energy. You're going to feel sluggish. And I mean, it's also dangerous. You know, you don't want to push through a workout when you're really tired because that can result in injury. You know, you're not really paying attention to what you're doing. So, you know, it says slower reaction times on here. All of that can contribute to an injury in the gym. So no matter how much or how hard you are exercising, chronic lack of sleep will always cause your performance and body composition to suffer. So even if you chug a Red Bull and go work out, even if you're sleep deprived, your performance is always going to suffer. Your body composition is always going to suffer because you're not giving your body the time it needs to rest and recover. All right, how immunity is affected. So when you don't get enough sleep, your T cells go down and inflammation goes up. T cells, those are a type of lymphocyte that they play a central role in immune response. T cells protect the body from various pathogens and even cancer cells. So when your T cells go down, that means you have increased vulnerability to viruses and bacteria, and a decreased ability to fight off those viruses and bacteria. You have an increased risk of getting sick and an increased risk of developing inflammation-related diseases. So this is especially important, you know, given the environment of the world right now. You don't want your T cells to be down. You don't want to be vulnerable to viruses or bacteria. You don't ever want that, but especially now, I think it's super relevant. You never want your immunity to be affected negatively, and chronic sleep deprivation can negatively affect your immunity. And even according to the CDC, sleep deprivation has been linked to chronic diseases such as diabetes, heart disease, obesity, and even depression. So it's not just, you know, you might get the flu because you're sleep deprived. It can lead to even more issues down the road, especially if your sleep deprivation is chronic and now your immunity is lower. So you never want your immunity to be low because you're sleep deprived. All right, so I mentioned brain fog earlier. So what that means is sleep affects your cognitive function. So sleep deprivation can disrupt your brain cells' ability to communicate with each other, meaning that you have reduced alertness, reduced concentration, confusion, impaired judgment, forgetfulness, impaired perception, moodiness, all of those things, those kind of all contribute to brain fog. So I'm sure everyone has maybe experienced this once or twice before, where you kind of just feel like, you're floating around the day. You're not really like focusing on any one thing. You might forget something that you had to do that day, or, you might just be kind of going about your day in a state of like confusion and just like heaviness in your head. That's brain fog. So what that means is the brain can take a longer time to perceive what's going on. So it takes a longer time to perceive what your eyes are seeing, takes longer to perceive like what you're tasting and when you put food in your mouth. And that's not something that you want to be going on. Especially if you relate it back to exercise, you don't want to have reduced concentration in the gym. That's just setting yourself up for an accident. Another example, a tired driver would be at a higher risk for causing an accident. Noticing a pedestrian crossing in front of them would take a sleep-deprived driver longer to notice that person. And it all comes back to the fact that your brain is taking longer to perceive what those eyes are seeing. Sleep-deprived drivers are very dangerous on the road. Not only if pedestrian is crossing in front, the car in front of you hits the brakes and you don't register it quick enough. So all of those things, you never want to be in that sort of situation where you're too tired to be perceiving the world around you. How your mental state is affected. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this, but my talk next week is going to be all about stress. So we will go into all of this stuff in more detail next week. But just to touch on it a little bit today. Overnight while you're sleeping, the brain and the body produces fresh neurotransmitters and regulates the production of many key hormones that affect not only our mood, but also hunger, like we already talked about. So sleep deprivation can cause an impaired regulation of hormones. So your cortisol increases and your melatonin decreases. Cortisol is the stress hormone. So when you're sleep deprived, that means your cortisol is rising. Cortisol also acts as an antagonist to melatonin, which melatonin is the hormone that's responsible for inducing sleep. So as your cortisol increases, your melatonin decreases, making it harder for you to fall asleep. You'll have increased feelings of stress, again, because of that increased cortisol, low mood or mood swings, and increased risk of depression. So sleep not only affects your body physically, it also affects your body mentally. And I'm gonna get into this in a lot more detail next week when we talk about the stress killer. So before I talk a little bit about how to improve your sleep, there's a reason that sleep is in the middle. It affects everything. So bad sleep affects your exercise. Bad sleep affects your nutrition. It affects your stress, and it affects your lifestyle. So sleep, in my opinion, is the most important pillar. And it's also the pillar that people tend to just kind of ignore. When I ask clients, oh, how many hours of sleep are you getting a night? Either they don't know, or it's always like, oh, I don't know, a couple, one or two, like 3 or 4, So sleep is extremely, extremely important. And if fat loss is something that you are focusing on, then you can't afford to ignore your sleep schedule. Sleep definitely needs some extra attention, in my opinion. And I also think, like I said, it's the one that people just don't really pay much attention to. But it is arguably the most important pillar of the 5. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to focus all your attention on it, because like I said in the beginning, remember, all 5 of your pillars need to be aligned in order to have fat loss success. So when I say sleep is the most important, it's the most important because it affects all the other ones. And if you're really just focusing on exercise and nutrition, like most people do when they are starting to work on fat loss, and completely ignoring the other three, you're not going to have the success that you want. All right, how to improve your sleep. So there are lots of things you can do to improve your sleep schedule. And a lot of it has to do with your sleep environment. So turning off your electronics, making sure your room is as dark as possible, making sure your room is a comfortable temperature, and then just, trying to do things for yourself, like de-stressing before bed, taking a warm bath or warm shower right before bed. Limit fluids before bed, so once you get in bed, you're not getting up to use the bathroom. Limiting caffeine and alcohol before bed. Caffeine, that should be obvious, but I know people who drink coffee at 6 p.m. So that'll keep you up all night. And alcohol, same thing. You always want to try to stick to a regular sleep schedule. So I know that's tough with work and family and everything else that we have going on in our lives, but trying to go to bed at the same time every night and trying to wake up at the same time in the morning, that's super important, especially with like regulating your body to a certain sleep schedule. What else? Did I miss anything? Try to clear your mind. So, sometimes people tell me, oh, I just can't sleep because my mind just never shuts off. So what I like to do for that is journaling before bed. For me, it helps to like get out all my thoughts. After the day's over, I'm sitting in bed and my mind is racing. It helps to just put pen to paper and say, okay, like let me just empty my brain right now, and then you could try that and see if it helps. And then just creating a relaxing sleep area. So make sure your bed's comfortable, make sure the temperature is comfortable. If you have to sleep with a mask like I have on in the picture there, you might have to do that just to make sure the room is dark enough. So these are all things you can do to improve your sleep. All right, so we've got some questions to think about here. These are some things I know we've got some new people in here today, so I always end these presentations with a list of questions for you to work on your own. And these are definitely things that even if you don't write them down, at least think about them and think about your answers and how you can improve upon them. So number one, how many hours of sleep am I getting per night versus how many hours of sleep do I need per night? So when you think about like your normal bedtime routine, what time do you usually go to bed? What time do you actually fall asleep? And what time are you waking up in the morning? And then compare that to the recommendations that I showed you on one of the first slides and see if you're getting enough sleep that is recommended, or if you are slacking a little bit on that. Number two, have I noticed a change in my appetite, mood, workouts, etc. after a night with less sleep? So, everyone has those days where they know they didn't get enough sleep. Maybe they were tossing and turning all night long. After one of those nights, think about how your next day typically goes. Do you, are you sluggish? Are you eating more like sugary, pleasurable foods? Are you, a little bit down and moody? Do your workouts like not go so well? So think about that. And if this happens to you like, sometime this week or next week, think about this question. And, if you wake up one morning and you just know you didn't have a good night of sleep, be aware of that during your day and like see what you do differently versus a night that you got a good amount of sleep. Number three, how can I improve my sleep environment and therefore improve my sleep? So this one's super important. How can you make the environment that you sleep in might be your bedroom, might be, I don't know, maybe you sleep on the couch, I don't know. Let's use bedroom for now. How can you improve your bedroom to improve your sleep? So maybe you have a nightlight that keeps the room bright. So maybe you shut that off. maybe you put your phone like right next to your bed on the on your bedside table, and maybe it like lights up at night, and that puts light into the room. For that, I would suggest phone face down if you can't shut it off overnight. I will admit I never shut my phone off overnight because I use it as my alarm, but I always make sure I flip it over because sometimes I do get notifications in the middle of the night that just like brighten up my whole room. And that, if I'm like about to fall asleep and then I see brightness from my phone, that'll wake me right back up. So that's another thing you can do. And maybe like making sure that everything's quiet, or if you sleep with like a noise machine, making sure that that's on, making sure that the temperature's good wherever you're sleeping. So yeah, so just think about your sleep environment, how you usually sleep at night, where you sleep, the stuff going on around you, and how can you improve upon that. Number 4, this is homework. Obviously you don't have to do this, but really the only way to kind of gauge where you're at with your sleep is to track it. So track your sleep for a week and journal how you feel each day. I know it's tough to track sleep because you never really know when you actually fall asleep. I would suggest there are a bunch of apps that you can get for your phone that do track sleep. If you wear a Fitbit, this is how I track my sleep. I wear it to bed. So some sort of like Apple Watch, I'm sure, has it. Any sort of like exercise tracker should be able to track your sleep as well. And then just journal every morning. Say, you know, I woke up feeling good, refreshed, maybe because I slept for 8 hours last night, and then just kind of see how each day goes. You know, if you had a great night of sleep, maybe you notice that you wake up and you're not tired, and then you have less coffee during the day, and you eat really healthy the whole day. You're not really craving anything sweet. And your workout goes great. You have a lot of energy. You're feeling good. And you just generally are like feeling pretty good that day. Versus a day where maybe you didn't get enough sleep and you kind of wake up sluggish and you have to have 3 cups of coffee to even start moving and start getting through your day. Maybe you're just like craving donuts for breakfast, or you just want like something sugary or sweet. Maybe your workout doesn't go so well. You're not really feeling it, or maybe you skip it altogether. And that would be a day where sleep really affected your entire day. So think about these questions. You know, try tracking your sleep, see how it goes, and yeah, it'll be good to sort of think about it more now that you're aware of it. Thinking about your sleep and how you can improve your overall number of hours that you sleep. All right, any questions at all? No? All right, so if you don't have any questions right now, if you think of anything, feel free to shoot me an email. Either this email or my work email is fine, or you can send me a DM on Instagram, that's fine as well. Next week, I will be talking about stress. So we're going to dive a lot deeper into the stress hormones that I mentioned and talk more about how stress affects our fat loss. Thank you for coming.